In 2010, Norwegian detective Bernd Stellander placed a hidden camera on a quiet hill above Praia de Luz. He wasn't searching for suspects, he was studying behavior. Weeks later, the footage revealed something unsettling. Kate and Jerry McCann arrived under the cover of night. No twins, no cameras, no media. In silence, they placed a fresh pink flower on a stone heart. No prayers, no tears, just ritual. Stellander called it romanticizing the grave, not an act of parents searching, but of mourners returning. To him, this wasn't hope, it was resignation, and it sparked a chilling question. Did they already believe Madeline was dead and buried just a few hundred meters from apartment 5A? Spot 1 didn't appear on any tourist map. Stellander found it through behavioral mapping, tracing the McCann's movements when no one was watching. What he discovered was hunting. A stone heart, the letter M carefully arranged from twigs, a single rose replaced week after week. There were no public reports of this place, no police records, no photographs in the press. This wasn't part of the investigation. It was a private ritual, almost a hidden shrine. For Stellander, the symbolism was unmistakable. Families of missing children build hope through searches, campaigns, and vigils. But this site whispered us something different, acceptance of death. And if that was true, the mystery of Madeline's disappearance took on an even darker shadow. In July 2007, 2 British specialist dogs were brought into the investigation. Eddie, a cadaver dog trained to detect the scent of death, and Keela, a blood detection dog with a flawless record. Inside apartment 5A, Eddie alerted to 5 separate locations: behind the sofa, in the closet, on Cuddle Cat, on Kate's clothes, and later in the trunk of a rental car hired weeks after Madeline vanished. Keela confirmed blood traces. These dogs were trusted worldwide, never once proven wrong. Yet, their alerts were dismissed. Why? Because they clashed with the abduction narrative. The science wasn't doubted, the politics were. And in that moment, perhaps the strongest evidence of death was buried under a story too fragile to challenge. From day one, lead investigator Gonzalo Amaro doubted abduction. He saw no forced entry, no witnesses to an intruder, and no signs of a break-in. What he did have were the dog's alerts, forensic inconsistencies, and the timeline full of holes. Amaro formed a theory. Madeline died accidentally in the apartment, and her parents moved the body. He pursued this line relentlessly, but pressure mounted. By 2008, he was removed from the case. Later, he published The Truth of the Lie, stating she didn't leave the apartment alive. The McCann sued. Courts fought. His career was destroyed. Yet Amaro's voice refuses to fade. In silence, in courtrooms, in whispers, his theory lingers like a ghost over the entire case. Before forensic teams touched a single surface, the abduction narrative had already been set. Headlines across Europe painted Kate and Jerry as innocent parents, victims of a faceless predator. At the center was Clarence Mitchell, a former UK government media strategist turned family spokesman. Within days, the McCanns met the Pope, appeared on Oprah, and launched a campaign raising millions. Every interview reinforced the same message: abduction. It was fast, polished, professional. Too polished, some said. This wasn't the language of raw grief, it was crisis management. And as cameras rolled, an unsettling thought emerged. Was the world being told a story not to reveal the truth, but to bury it beneath a carefully crafted PR machine? They were called the Tapa 7, friends who dined with the McCanns on the night Madeline disappeared. Over 17 years, their statements have never shifted, perfectly consistent. Not a contradiction, not a doubt. But experts in human behavior say memory under stress is fragile. People misremember times, details, even faces. Perfect recall is rare. In fact, it's a red flag. Were the Tapa 7 simply aligned by loyalty, or was something unspoken binding them together? Critics argue this wasn't coincidence. It was a wall of silence, and behind that wall may have been the most important secret of all, not what happened that night, but what each of them was willing to protect at any cost. The timeline is simple, or so it seems. At 9:05 p.m., Jerry checked the apartment. All 3 children safe. At 9:30, Matthew Oldfield claimed he listened but never looked inside. At 10 p.m., Kate entered, and Madeline was gone. But between Jerry's check and Kate's scream lies a 55-minute void. No one can place Madeline alive in that span. A gap in time wide enough for panic, for a terrible accident, for a desperate cover-up. Investigators call it the black hole of the case, for if the truth hides anywhere, it is here, in the missing minutes where a child's fate was sealed and the story of abduction or concealment began. On the same night, just before 10 p.m., an Irish tourist, Martin Smith, saw a man carrying a small girl through the quiet streets, only 500 yards from the apartment. He thought little of it until months later, watching news footage of Jerry McCann stepping off a plane, holding his son in the same cradled position. Smith froze. The walk, the arms, the movement, it was identical. His statement was blunt. It was him. But was it? If Smith was correct, then Jerry wasn't at the Tapas table when he claimed. Instead, he was carrying a child into the night. For investigators, this wasn't just a sighting. It was the shadow of a cover-up captured in one chilling memory. At 9:15 p.m., a resort staff member claimed he saw Jerry McCann carrying a child toward the beach. Jerry explained it away, a friend's child, returning from care. But there was a problem. No other children were in evening care that night. The witness insisted on what he saw: a man, a child, and a direction toward the dark ocean. Combined with the Smith family sighting, the pattern was undeniable. 2 independent witnesses, 2 similar descriptions, both pointing to Jerry. Dismissed by media, minimized in reports, the testimony lingers in files like a ghost. If accurate, it places a father walking into the night, not searching for his daughter, but carrying her away. For investigators, the pieces began to form a single story, not of abduction, but of accident and concealment. A fall from a bed, a moment of anger, a terrible accident no parent ever prepares for. Jerry, discovering the scene, panicked. He moved her body, wiped the apartment, and returned to dinner as if nothing had happened. At 10 p.m., Kate entered, not to find an empty bed, but to face the truth. A decision was made that night. Protect the family, protect the twins, protect the secrets. And from that choice, a narrative was born. Abduction became the shield. Silence became survival. And 17 years later, the cover-up theory still answers questions the abduction theory never could.